So, police have confirmed that two Scottish men who had moved to Spain after previous attempts on their life had now been killed in a most brutal fashion while outside the Monaghans bar in Spain. Police say that the two Scottish gangsters, one being Ross Monaghan and the second being Eddie Lyons Jr., that they were part of the Notorious Lions crime organisation that was responsible for millions of pounds worth of drug trade, M's and taxing, as well as alien abductions, and of course their highly publicised feud with the Daniel crime gang. Now they had been outside after watching PSG win the Champions League on Saturday evening. Just after 11 p.m, a car had pulled up outside a crowded bar that was filled with tourists and expats near the seafront. A masked man had quickly exited the car and then took aim at both Ross and Eddie Lyons Jr., then pressed the trig. Now that GUN man had people scattering and running and cowering and covering in all different directions. So far, all signs point to this was a planned execution, as the GUN man had impeccable aim. Tragically, both Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. were pronounced dead at the scene, and as for the person responsible, they just climbed back into the same car that they had arrived in and then drove away. Now, in the aftermath of the it was said that Ross Monaghan was just laying there, and while some people were screaming in horror, other people were just recording. Now, Ross Monaghan was said to have been a targeted man for years, and a hit had been placed on him. Now, Ross was previously linked to the high-profile and barbaric killing of Kevin Gerbil Carroll, who was described as a feared enforcer for the Daniel crime gang. If you remember, Kevin, who was only 29 years old at the time, was allegedly set up after a scheduled meeting with dealer Stephen Glenn. Kevin had met Stephen and then told him, "You work for me now. If anyone's got a problem with it, I'll deal with it." Now, Kevin was in the back of an Audi A3 when a car pulled up, a Volkswagen Golf, while they were in an Asda car park in the north of Glasgow. Now, Kevin had been more than 12 times in broad daylight at 1:25 p.m. after he was trapped in the back of an Audi A3. His friends had ran off and left him. The entire incident lasted no longer than 25 seconds. Now, Ross Monaghan, who was only 29 years old at the time, was arrested in connection of the but the trial ultimately collapsed after Ross had spent time on remand because there was insufficient evidence, and that was in May of 2012. Police believe that the M of Eddie Lyons Jr. and Ross Monaghan are linked to the Lyons-Daniel feud because 18 years ago, Eddie Lyons Jr. had been ambushed by Kevin Carroll in Bells Hill, Lanarkshire. Now, as for Ross Monaghan, he had been struck with ammo in his shoulder when he was on a school run in 2017. It was after this incident that Ross thought, forget this, he packed his things and then moved to Spain, a safe haven for big-time criminals. Again, Ross and Eddie had remained good friends, and early reports say that the two gangsters who were feared had watched the Champions League final together and then were outside when they were fired upon, which proved fatal. Now, this will only escalate the feud, which is happening in Scotland. The only question I have right now is, who gave up Ross and Eddie's location? Let me know your thoughts in the comment as to what happens next. Stay safe.